To get started within PICO, there's a simple architecture that everything needs to follow. Each product is comprised of a series of processes, and each of those processes are assigned to a station. Those stations are your physical workstations or the digital representation of those stations in your production floor. And each of those processes are the individual sequence of operations and steps that each operator does to perform their work. These can be applied to either assembly line settings, batch processing stations, or some combination of the two to be able to digitally represent your production workflow. So we're going to jump in and add our first product here. When we hit the Add Product button, we have the ability to be prompted for a true blank slate of a product. In this case, we're going to be working through an example of assembling a bicycle. We can type in our product information here and create our first sequence. When we say we can update a picture, so if we want to include any set of images, we can certainly do that as well, or create a sequence of new processes. When we do that, we can create a new process and name it as we need to. For example, if we want to assemble our bicycle frame, we can do that. When we add a new process, let's say we want to attach the wheels, for example, these tiles are created in sequence to be able to manage and process that digital workflow. So I'm just going to add a few more here as we create our bicycle example. But each of these can be done by adding it from the toolbar or moving it around. This is a full drag and drop interface that if I hold my middle mouse wheel, I can drag these around. I can zoom in and out as needed if I have a bigger workflow up to that point. But this is essentially to create that skeleton workflow of your structure. Anything that needs to be renamed can be done so from this menu as well. And we can start setting up our sequence of processes from here. Why we've set it up in this drag and drop structure is that if we need to start realigning and reorganizing our processes later, we can do that from this flow. It's not done from a table view. It's not done from a must insert a different sequence and routing operations. We have the ability to move these around as needed to say this is illustrating a sequence of operations. This is doing it from, I have two operators doing it in parallel, that someone's attaching the wheels at the same time they're doing a brake pad calibration. Or if this wheels can be done at any point, and I'm actually going to create a batch work center here of wheel assembly, that this is kind of a sub-assembly coming off to the side. If this is a process that can be done at any time, they're made in batch off to the side. I can always increase this to be a flow off to the side as needed. So when we talk about this structure, I'm just going to leave it in sequence for now, but what's important is that this can always be returned to at any point to rearrange this sequence. As soon as I hit save, I can always come back and adjust this as needed later, but I can change my workflow here as needed to support what I'm trying to do. And when I dive into creating my first process, I can always come back to this flow and rearrange later as needed, which we'll be able to get into in a later session.